I think anyone who has chosen the path of coach has chosen it because they do have a desire to serve. And the amazing feeling of being able to meet those people in real life and to like really feel the shift that you're being able to provide people, that feeling that you get in person, like if you haven't felt it yet, I can't explain it. It's so much fun. Being able to hug your people at the end of an event where they're all just like the most amped and they're like, I can't wait to give you a testimony. Like, it's the best. It's really the best. I can't even explain it to you. And I hope that I see so many events from coaches who have every right and really deserve to have that feeling. I hope I see so many of those events on the proverbial master calendar in the next year.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Conscious Grounding Podcast with myself, Anthony Manuel, and my good friend and business partner, Matthew Finlin, where we're having elevated conversations brought right back down to earth. And today we are joined by someone who I'm so incredibly stoked to talk to. If you don't know, Matthew and I do a business where we teach coaches and consultants online how to make $12,000 to $25,000 a month. And we have an online community where we get all those coaches into the same place. But we also happen to spend about 6 to 8 hours a day on Zoom calls and on the internet. And as amazing as it is to bring all of these people together and bring them into an online space for community, there is an element that I feel is missing. There is a in-person, embodied, hey, let me reach out and hug you element that is just drastically missing from the community building space, the coaching space in general. And the reason that I'm so stoked to have you on, Madeline Griffin, is because you are up to some really, really cool stuff that is going to really change the game and really bring all of our little Zoom bubbles into real life. And so I'm not going to give my long, elaborate introductions that I normally give on this show. I would love for you to share with the audience who you are, what you're up to, and why we're having this conversation today.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me. My name is Madeline Griffin, and I consider myself a community junkie. And I am so stoked to be here to talk to you guys. I think we are all spending way too much time on Zoom as we sit here right now on Zoom. But I have always just had a huge passion for community building. I have always said that ever since I was a child, I'm a joiner. I just love to join something. If you have something you need a member for, you call me, I'm ready to go. And that's just always been who I am. And thankfully, that's been something that I've been able to make a career out of. And I got into event planning when I was in college, mostly because I love to party and I wanted to do it for free. And so I became the party planner. I worked in student government. I was the social chair, which is the perfect chair for the party girl in me when I was that age. And it was just, it was my career from then on out. I've done corporate and weddings and the totally boring stuff and the really fun stuff, luxury retreats and music festivals, anything under the sun. And so I'm just really lucky to have made a passionate career out of community building and events.
Now, with that background and that community building and events background, tell us a little bit about what you're up to now and how it came to be.
So I actually quit my job, which is the classic story of a coach, 18 months ago. And in that process, I thought initially that I would become a consultant, a freelance event planner. And that just didn't feel right. I had a dream of being able to help so many more people than I can help on my own. I can only plan so many events a year. There are only so many weekends that people can host retreats, and that just didn't feel like enough for me. So I had an idea to essentially teach a coach to fish, and take everything that I know about event planning, about community building, and offer that knowledge to coaches so that, number one, they don't have to pay someone like me. I'm really trying to put myself out of business. I want everyone to be able to not have a cost prohibitive decision making process, where they don't say, I can't afford a planner and thus I can't do events. Everyone can do events. It's not rocket science. I know that because I'm not a rocket scientist. And I've created a system and a framework that I've used for the last 10 plus years to create some really, really incredible transformational events. And so my program From Coach to Host is a logistical, but also a transformational event planning course. We're not planning crappy, boring, like conference room stuff. We're not doing it. We're learning how to plan events that are really connective, focused on community, and something that's actually going to, elevate your authority as a coach and bring your community together in a way that you're just really not able to do online. It can be both, but there's a serious benefit to gathering in person.
What are those benefits of gathering in person? What do you feel is missing from the online connection that you just can't replicate with the in-person stuff?
Gosh, so many. The biggest one, they're all big. The biggest one is, I think, just the resonance of being in the room with other people. Coming together face to face on screen is one thing, and coming together in a way where your energetic field is then in the same place as my energetic field. Like, there's an actual science to that of, the 6 feet around you is your energetic field. And so when you're in a physical space with other people, creativity is sparked. You get to actually hug and look each other in the eyes and, feel each other in a way that you can't feel through a screen. And another one of the things that I just love about in-person events is the content is one thing, and a great coach has great content, and that's amazing. But it's like the in-between moments when, the girls are in the girls' bathroom and there's, girls' bathroom chat. And there's, people who make connections like in the hallway in between sessions. And the amount of events that I've done that I've talked to people afterwards and they're like, I got a business partner out of this. I got a relationship out of this. I have a new best friend. Like, that is simply not possible on screen. Like, no matter how many breakout rooms you do, that simply doesn't happen. I think there's no replacement.
Matthew and I are actually a testament to that because we met up again at a retreat in Mexico in March. And now we're currently living together for a season.
Mm-hmm.
Our business that we started was a result of us meeting together in person. And it wasn't during like the actual events. It was like when we were off in our room and talking about other things. And we had that experience. That was like, we're living that right now. What you just described. You walk away with a business partner and a best friend. It's like, well, there we go. That's exactly what we're doing. And what kind of comes up in mind when you're talking about the difference between the in-person versus like seeing someone on a Zoom screen is I kind of think of it as mirror neurons versus your heart field, where it's like we can see each other's facial expressions, we can hear tonality, and all, our neurochemistry is wired to respond to that, but we actually have a magnetic field and a resonant field around our heart, which I'm sorry, you can't feel my resonant field right now staring at us on Riverside.
I wish I could, but I can't.
It'd be wonderful if you could. But when you're actually in the field of someone's presence, there's a different type of information transference that happens. And I think you can't do that on a Zoom screen, no matter what. Even Matthew and I sitting here right now in person, this is our first sitting in the same room podcast with someone, and there's a little bit of a different energy to it than if he was still in Peru and, on a separate little square, right? I would love to know if you're a coach who has been doing a lot of online stuff, maybe you have groups, maybe you have a community going on, and you have no idea where to start with events. You don't know how to rally all the people that are scattered all over your audience in the different places. And what's the best introductory type event for a person to start doing, to start building and maybe even rallying their community to start doing in-person stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what a lot of people first rub up against when they think they want to start doing events is number one, imposter syndrome. We love it. It happens to all of us, and it's actually it's an amazing sign. It means that you have something to teach that you're really excited about, and the not feeling the uncertainty, the potential of not feeling ready, the idea that, you've been doing things online for so long. This is who you are. This is the type of coach you are. What if people don't want to come? All of those things start to come up for people. And one of the best pieces of advice that I think I can give anyone looking to do events is it's not about you, it's about them. And so, number one, asking your audience what they want is a great place to start. What are they looking for from you? What do they want to deep dive into? Events are a great way to take, a small section of what you teach and get really, really deep into it, because when you're in the space with people, that's a lot easier. So asking your audience what you want and starting small. Lots of people are like, pedal to the metal. Let's do a 5-day retreat in Mexico and we'll get 12 guest speakers and, goodie bags worth $5,000. And it's really beneficial for you to have a win out of the gate. So start small. Plan a 1-day workshop, a round table, something more simple that that you can absolutely crush. It'll make the planning process a lot easier. It will, give you a whole lot less stress in getting it together. And then the third thing I would say would be to come at the event with the understanding that you are a facilitator of the experience. You are not forcing your audience to do anything. You're facilitating a transformation. And so in that way, it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing where you have to prepare a ton of content. You don't have to prepare 6 different speeches. You are able to provide valuable experiences for people, and then also give a significant amount of that downtime. Like you said, you two met in the downtime of your retreat. And I think people are really scared to do an event where they don't have a ton of stuff. That imposter syndrome starts to come in, where it's like, I have to over deliver. I have to give so much value. And what I really want people to understand is that there's tons of value, maybe more value in the downtime, in the in-between time, in making space for not you, but them to be able to connect and process. And that's where like real transformation can often happen, is in those little bits of time.
I'm really liking hearing the transformation side that you alluded to, where it's like you're not just teaching people a framework of like, well, of course you are teaching the framework of this is the logistical sequence of how you plan these events, but I'm kind of catching a glimpse of that transformation side, where it's like you need to have that groundedness in yourself and that confidence to be able to create the space for people to mingle and integrate and doing all those things. I want to dive deeper into that transformational side of your coaching. Because one of the things that I noticed with Matthew and I, every one of our business coaching clients ends up being an identity change coaching client. There has to be some sort of integration of an internalized identity where a person as a coach and a practitioner is their primary identity, and then they have to integrate the identity as a business owner, as a manager, as an entrepreneur, and that has to become, they have to believe that about themselves. And so who is the type of person you need to become to be a community leader, to be an events runner, to do what it is that you're teaching?
Yeah, it's such a good question. the biggest thing that I feel like someone needs in order to step from coach to host and be that leader, be that host of their community, is to really understand that your role is to be of service. Again, it's not about you, it's about them. And that is the biggest piece of advice that I can give someone who is wanting to step on stage. I think we have this desire to, and this is very normal. I feel it. You guys probably feel it. It's like, I have something really good to share and I want people to listen to me. And that's amazing. And that's the thing that's driven you to be, the coach that you are. And if that is not built on a foundation of being of service to your clients, then then it's just it's just a platform for you to scream into the void. If you are wanting to do one-off anything, it's like if you make a product and it's not a good product, but you market the hell out of it, it has great branding, like people are going to probably buy that product, but they're not going to rebuy that product. And so if you can become that host where it's not about getting people to the first event, it's about getting people into your community. It's about getting people to really commit to that community, to feel identity with that community, and to really sort of like join the culture of whatever it is that you're teaching. So I think the coach that can make that shift of, I am the facilitator of this service, I'm a facilitator of this transformation, and understand that the events are about building up your clients and building up your community. You'll be good to go.
Sounds like a lot of just getting over yourself.
It's a lot of getting over yourself. Yeah.
I want to touch on the community side a little bit, because that's the core of what you do. It feels like, you're not just hosting these cool events where people are dancing and doing breath work and having breakthroughs, but you're building a community, and use the word culture. And I'd love to know what your definitions of what constitute a strong community with strong shared values.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal the definition from Simon Sinek. So Simon Sinek was just on a podcast on Diary of a CEO, and they were talking about the digital age, AI. What the heck is happening? How are we going to move forward? And he was asked, like, what is community? What is this thing that we are almost going to be forced to build to save our culture? And his definition is that community is a group of people who have agreed to grow together. And that feels like a better definition than I could have given. It's shared values, shared goals, and people who have, really come to their own understanding of the intention of their own growth. And that's something that has, whatever that point is of connection, they've come to this place because they all agree that that's important to them and that that's worth working for. And so, cult comes from culture. There's a reason why these, all kinds of communities that get labeled cults are the way that they are. It's, Burning Man and CrossFit and Pilates. It's like all of these things that people are like, well, you're in a cult. It's because they've bonded over something that they find valuable, that they feel is necessary to work toward in their growth journey. And so you can build a cult about anything. You really can, because it's just about the culture, about what values are important to those people. And so regardless of what you coach, you can be a fitness trainer, you can be a yoga instructor, you can teach photography or business development. There are people that are so interested in that thing that you teach, that they are willing to fly across the world. They're willing to spend their hard-earned cash to come to something where they can find people who are also obsessed with that thing. And you get to be the person that sort of brings that to life and offers them that space to connect with each other.
It's interesting because I'm now starting to kind of see an emergent pattern of like what a community leader ends up being, right? We have to like get over yourself and dedicate yourself towards service, almost be that gravitational center point of the culture, and like being almost like a lighthouse of like, hey, like you are this person, you value these things, this is what you're obsessed with, and we're all kind of hanging out and congregating here, just like come on over. What are some of the other things you think constitute a community leader? What does it mean to like step into that role as a community leader?
Yeah, I think, I mean, get over yourself, be a lighthouse. I love the term lighthouse. We actually, in a past community that I worked in, we had lighthouse members, which the idea was to give, not power, but give space for the members to take on roles of leadership as well and to guide other members. And that's something that I feel like is a really important quality in a leader, is to be able to disperse the power and disperse the influence and give, give space for the members to take up roles of leadership, and of accountability, and of, yeah, being that lighthouse and showing other people what it's like to really succeed in whatever it is that you're teaching. So a coach and a leader who can be confident enough in their own journey and in their own coaching to start to, let go a little bit and say, this community really starts to become something of its own. It's an organic, living being. If you gather, 20, 100, 5,000 people, that's not under your control anymore. Those are people with their own minds and their own thoughts, and they have all of their own goals. And so if you try to like seriously control everything that happens in the community, and you're living in that scarcity mindset of what will happen if I let them self-organize? What will happen if they, if they learn so much from me and then they do it themselves? It's like, that's the goal. You are you are in service to these people, and you are in service to their growth. And so offering that space for people to really, for other people to take up space is really important.
That reminds me of is when I read the Tao Te Ching, I learned that it was written for an emperor, I think. And a lot of the explanation of the Tao was talking about how to rule over a country. And most of it was don't. It was like, don't rule over them. Don't like create those like strong rules, and don't create too much. Allow, like, it's sort of like ruling without ruling and creating the space for self-governance to happen. And there still has to be a container, it feels like, but it's like that container is more of a holding space for autonomy and sovereignty and self-expression, and creating opportunity for people to express themselves and grow in those ways. That's really what's coming up for me there. What do you think are some of the biggest mistakes a coach will make when they start to transition from online to in-person?
Such a good question. So as I said before, I teach what I teach in sort of two ways. There's the logistical version, and then there's the transformational version. The logistics they're logistics. It's a checklist. You do the thing. It's not rocket science. I think what's more interesting is, it's not oh, you made a mistake of, screwing up your budget. Like, we can fix that. That's not, that's not something that's profound. But I think the internal process of becoming a community leader, a facilitator in person, and what I think is much easier online is to hide the little imperfections. There's a lot you can do when you're editing. If you're not even coaching live, if you're coaching in, sort of evergreen containers, there's so much that you can do to really edit out the mistakes, the missteps, all of the little things that you're like, I don't want people to know that I had to look that up before I coached it. And that's fine. But when you're live, you have to get really, really comfortable with being like, I fucked that up real hard just now. And honestly, the thing is, people love imperfection. And I think, especially now when we're shoved into this age of AI where everything is so templated, so perfect, no spelling mistakes, the humanness of who we are gets really lost. And I think the mistake of aiming for perfection is somewhere where you really fall short. You can fall short of a massive amount of growth and a connection point with your people. People kind of want to see you fail in weird ways. Like, it feels good to be, if you're in a talk and if you're actually in a space in person and whoever's on stage like trips, it's funny and they love it. And they're like, wow, that's a real human being. Like, I could be that person. I could also be up on stage because I see how human they are. And so I think in-person events are an opportunity for you to humanize yourself, come back down to earth in a way that is actually really attractive to people and can make you a significantly better coach.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think that what was coming to mind for me is like when I'm exercising with you and I'm seeing you struggle, I feel good.
He doesn't struggle.
Because I'm struggling too. And I'm like with him and I'm like, oh, okay, good. Like, this is a strong man that's also in the pressure cooker with me right now too. And it's kind of like motivating. Yeah. Humanizing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think there's that balance between, like, obviously you want to be the anchor and the leader and the example and the one who, like you said, you're the host, you're the example and the facilitator of that. And there has to be a certain level of confidence and authority and direction and that anchor to what people are doing. But it's, how do you become the anchor without putting that anchor on a pedestal and making you unrelatable and unreachable?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I love so much about events in particular, if you can be so prepared, like, there's a system for that. There is a system for the logistics of an event that you can walk in and know, I did everything I could. I did everything I could. There will always be things that happen. I did an event where our tent blew away. Like, there was a storm and the tent blew away, and that was a problem. But all of the logistics, if you can come into that with just so much preparation and so much confidence that everything is as well logistically planned as it possibly can, all of the mistakes and missteps and humanness and messiness, like, that becomes the messy piece, and that's really beautiful. If you can clear out the mess of potential logistical failures, all of the other messiness is actually really fun, and you get to put out little fires and make little mistakes, and it's part of the journey and the experience. Like, it comes to mind the advice I remember getting in an ayahuasca ceremony, and every psychedelic ceremony, which is, whatever happens, it's part of your ceremony. Like, I did ayahuasca, and there was a in Costa Rica, and there was a party barge like a reggaeton party barge that showed up nearby, and we listened to reggaeton for like a while during that ceremony. It was a lot. But that's all part of the experience. It's not, working against you. It's not something that's ruining your event. If you can take all of those, fun little mishaps and make it just a part of the experience and make it part of the story and bring your guests in on it, like that just becomes fun. So handle all the stuff that can be handled, and then the stuff that, shows up just gets to be part of the story.
I like that simultaneity of like be as prepared as you can and organize and try to control every like variable that you can, while also having a total open hand about it all. Where it's like it's that the bend don't break sort of principle, right? If you organize everything and then you are reliant on it going exactly the way that you planned, you're gonna have a bad time.
Bad time.
And it's not the point. Like you said, the messy human side is the sort of the point of it. And it's it's much harder to curate an experience in person than on a Zoom call where you can put the little AI backgrounds and adjust the volume and boot people out when they're trolling in the chat. And there's a whole other side to it. And I've been a part of many different events where things have gone so haywire. Like people just are doing the most absurd things and things are not going as planned. And it's some of the most memorable events that I've ever been to.
Yes, absolutely. There was an example I heard, again, I just listened to this podcast, so it's really fresh in my mind, on the Simon Sinek Diary of the CEO podcast. And he talked about how, like, LeBron James has had, I am not a basketball girly, so I don't really know, but like LeBron James has had X amount of, game winning free throws or something. And the game-winning free throws are the ones that people remember. All of the stuff that he's ever done where it kind of like lost the game, where that really wasn't a good, like people don't remember those. They remember the stuff that is really, really good. And if you can take the mistakes and spin those story-wise, experience-wise into positives, like those negatives actually just don't even exist anymore. When the tent blew away in the wind, that was hilarious. Like that wasn't a lose, that was a win. People remembered the, running around picking up pillows together, and like that was fun. So I don't even think that the little negative pieces, number one, people won't really remember them. And two, you're totally available to spin it into something that works for you.
Yeah, it almost feels like it's the reaction to the situation as opposed to the situation itself. Like, again, if you are entirely and totally dependent on things going exactly as you planned and you get all neurotic about it not going the way you planned, people will feel that.
I mean, that's life wisdom,
Yeah, applicable to not just live events. What's been one of your favorite live events that you've done, that you've organized, and why was it your favorite?
I have a couple. The biggest one is the music festival that I did for 2 years in Vegas. It was my baby. I feel like I birthed a child into the world. It was this absolutely incredible, painful process of creation, and just the gravity and the size of that event, and being at the helm of that process in the planning and the curation was truly such a gift. I had so much fun, and it almost was like the level to which it was really, really difficult. Fun little anecdote about that. The first year that we did it, our venue canceled on us 2.5 weeks before the event, and so we moved a festival of 2,000 people, and a budget of hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2.5 weeks, completely across the country, and it was a banger. It was such a success.
Dang.
And what that tells me about just sort of the joy of the process is everything. Like, I think we're so used to, especially now, we're used to skipping the process. Like, people aren't writing their own copy anymore. People aren't, they just want the business plan spit out by ChatGPT, and they don't want to go through the thing of, they don't want to build it. And like, that's so joyful. The building it is so joyful. And that's part of why I really love the idea of coaches learning how to and planning their own events, because that is a joyful, creative process that you get to be involved in that, connects you deeper to your business, connects you deeper to your audience. And like, yeah, the struggle of it is part of the fun of it. And like, what's better than showing up to the event that you built, that you put all of this time and effort and energy into, and then seeing people like happy tears, hug, cry on the last day and give you like the best testimonials you've ever had. And you're like, I built that. I did it. Like, that's amazing. So my favorite events, honestly, are the ones that have been hard. And just seeing people, eat the fruits of that labor and really benefit from it is like, yes.
I really love the call towards process orientation. Like, even in our coaching practice, one of the first things that we get every one of our coaches to do is to map out the process that they're going to walk their client through. Everyone has, it's like, if you get from point A to point B, you have a process to get them there. And that process has to be involved. It has to be informed by your personal experience, a level of mastery. It has to be an earned and learned thing that can't be skipped. And transformation happens through going through a process. Even if you get the business plan on GPT, you're still confronted with the reality that you have to go and execute on that business plan. And you're also going to be hit in the face when you realize, oh, the robot actually can't account for all the variables in my life. I'm going to have to iterate and respond on the fly. You cannot get away from process. You can't get away from participating in your own life in our instant gratification world that we're a part of. You can't get away from cultivating involvement, essentially. And I really love that that's a value that you teach. And I think finding joy in process is something people don't understand, because they're always looking for, like, I just want the fruits, and they're plucking fruits before they're ripe, and they're just eating all these bitter fruits over and over and over again. So what does a ripening process of the fruits of an event look like? If you're you're going from planting the seed all the way to tending the soil and finally like letting it get to harvest, like what like, quick overview, no pressure or anything, but quick overview, what does that process look like?
Yeah, the most important piece is the starting point of any event, and it is a vision purpose process. You have to figure out why you're gathering people. You don't have to, but it's probably worth it. You can do it, and it's not going to be very successful. And you're probably not going to see the transformation that in your mind when you had your amazing shower idea where you were like, I should do this thing. And then you don't go through that visioning process. You're not going to see the transformation that you envisioned. And so, my framework goes through a 4-part, it's a 4-part framework where we do a visioning and a purpose process at the beginning, where you really understand, why are you gathering people? What transformation are you really looking for? What is your purpose? What's sort of like the macro purpose? What's the purpose for the culture? What's the purpose for, the growth? And then, what's your purpose as a coach? And then what purpose do you hope to serve your clients? And that is like, do not skip that step. Do not. And then, there's the logistical process. And some people, there are two kinds of people that love spreadsheets and people that hate them. And lucky for anyone who takes my course, I love them. And the logistical elements are, it's a checklist. There's stuff you have to do. And I think, where people get lost is that they're kind of cobbling together a whole bunch of information and they're like, okay, this person said do this first and this person said do this first. And so my process is really an incredibly simple step-by-step logistical process that you just have to check the boxes. And if you are a coach that's like serving your clients and owning a business, like you can do that. And then there's the experiential design. And that is where things start to get really creative and fun. If you're not someone that loves logistics, this is probably going to be really fun for you. Where, we talk about the sensory design and the space design and, how to make the event flow from one thing to the next and how to design, these little intentional breaks and types of content that you can offer. So the experience design is really fun. It's a creative process. And people can get lost in the sauce there. They can get, your dreams get really big and you're like, I'll do this and I'll do this. And, the framework kind of brings us down to earth a little about what's possible and what's probable. And then there's the hosting section where, we learn to be good hosts who are in service to our community. And there's a lot to that. There's, the personal process of keeping your nervous system regulated on site and staying really grounded and being open and managing your energy. Like it's a lot to be in person with people. People are grabbing at your energy. They want all kinds of things from you. They're projecting all kinds of things onto you. And it's like, whoa, we got to make sure we're prepared for that. And yeah, just the more, the more logistical elements of hosting of figuring out how to be a good speaker and how to express yourself well on stage, which is very different than on Zoom. So yeah, that's sort of the process.
Overview. Matthew, I would love for you to riff a little bit because I know that a big part of your path has been stepping into that role as a community leader, and you're the community guy. One of the reasons I came out to Kelowna, British Columbia, was to be a part of this community, and you're connected to the community in Vancouver, and you've had an experience in navigating community and helping build community, and you're involved in all these different communities. So I'd love for you to riff a little bit about what your experience has been like, and we can kind of jam a little bit from there.
My experience with being involved in community leadership.
Yeah, and just the ways that you've stepped up as being like a community leader and some of the challenges that you've had around that.
Yeah, I think that I think you touched on it really well there, where when you step into like a leadership position, like there's like the spotlight is on you, and that comes with oftentimes pedestaling, and then small issues can become large issues when you're in that like kind of leadership role. When you're the one holding the container, you make a simple mistake, and then people's fear of safety can be pretty dramatic at times. And that you go through a lot of these experiences of just be yourself and like share your vulnerabilities, and then like you make a mistake, and then that you're not held to that same type of kind of accountability in that. When you're hosting and leading through bringing people, because you help coaches host retreats, and then the coaches are hosting the retreats, so you're like the container of the containers.
Coach who coach coaches who
Coaches to coach coaches on how to host retreats in person. What would you say are some of the more like dramatic experiences that you've gone through of like you just made a little whoopsie, but it got like mega amplified, and that retreat, or that hosts, as you call them, hosts, might want to pay attention to, and how to navigate and handle those?
Yeah, I, without giving terribly specific examples, I, one thing that I've come across on more than one occasion is bringing people into the fold who may not have been vetted enough. Um, I think as the host, you are holding the container, and it is your responsibility to create safety and security and trust for everyone that joins that container. And if you are going to bring in anyone else, a guest speaker, a guest facilitator, a performer, anything of that nature, you really have to you give a lot of trust to that person to be on the same page as you, to serve the community in the way that that you've promised them that you would. And I think that can be a tricky, slippery slope of wanting to put trust in other people and being open enough to share the spotlight and to yeah, I think you just have to be very careful about making sure that those people, are aligned with you and aligned with your community. I've had experiences where, we've had a surprise guest that really did not resonate at all. And that's a bummer because that does color people's perception of you. It colors their trust in you. And so it's not that those things can't be overcome. They absolutely can. And I think the way that you can, overcome any misstep is to be honest with your community and, own up to whatever the thing is and, ask for feedback. That I think is one thing that I've seen not go well in events that I've done in the past is we made an oopsie, cover it up a little. We don't want to hear your feedback because we know it's going to be bad. That's not the right way to go. If something happens and the feedback is going to be, a certain flavor, you have to ask for that feedback. It's so important, especially after making a mistake, to allow people to tell you how it made them feel, because that is step one in like regaining their trust. I think that can, that's life lessons across the board. Like that's how we want people to be in relationship with us, is like take responsibility, and care about how we feel when something goes awry. So that's a big one.
So it sounds like that first biggest step of the vision, purpose, what do you want? What's like the desired outcome for the participants to have this is why it's the biggest step. One of the big reasons is so that you can have a clear framework for who you're vetting to fit into the theme of the event. I have another question. Yeah.
The vision purpose is like every decision you make in your event planning process, and this can be about business in general. Every decision you make is infinitely easier if you can ask yourself the question, does this or does this not serve my vision? Like so many easy decisions at that point. If you don't know what your vision is, you're lost in the sauce of decision fatigue all the time. Meanwhile, if you understand what that is, you can be like, yep, or no, done,
Yeah.
moving on.
So I have another question. I own a retreat center in Peru. And what we do is we rent the space out for people to come facilitate their events at our spot in the Sacred Valley. And I've noticed a lot of the time that the people that are renting the space, they don't have enough money to pay for the entire space to be rented. So they put down their deposit and then it's like panic mode, have to get sales to pay the next chunk of money to rent the space. And so like I said, I made this promise to myself, and I'm curious about your feedback, and I have a follow-up question. But like, I'm not gonna host a space unless I can rent the whole space. I'm not gonna do like a deposit and then like have to go get some sales, because that puts you into this like, I need the sale, and that's kind of like a one-way street to probably inviting someone or closing somebody that maybe isn't even a good fit, but you need that, $1,000, $3,000 to pay your next deposit. Wondering if you see this being very common, and if you would advise people to just save up enough capital to pay the whole thing, or if doing that deposit and then going, if you see like maybe like an integrated way for people to do that, and just wondering what your whole take is on everything I just said.
Yeah, that's a super common, you know, roadblock that people find themselves in when they are trying to host their first thing. Once you get past the first, my recommendation is always like your events budget line in your business is your events budget line. So your profit from your first event does not get funneled into, ideally, does not get funneled into other business costs. It stays in that line, and it's then there for, deposits for future events. You want to build that little nest egg so that, because a lot, you have to prepay vendors, you have to prepay venues. Like, that is the case. You can't get around that. But for the first time, when you don't have that nest egg, there's a couple different options, and those are, it depends on who you are. One is getting a partner, a co-facilitator who may be able to share those costs with you. That's a really good option. It's also a good option for first-time event hosts because it takes off 100% of the pressure from you in both marketing and selling and then facilitating. And so sharing the cost with a partner is great. Sponsors, great option. Sometimes that's a hard one if you are, just starting out. It's much more difficult to get, cold hard cash sponsorships at the very beginning, but it is an option to explore. And then pre-selling is absolutely an option to create an event in a general location, selling tickets or selling deposits is not out of the question. Lots of people do this with online products. You sell a product before it's even made. That happens a lot. And so that's totally an option for event hosts as well. You have to be honest with your ticket buyers about what they are purchasing. And that's very important, because if you're going to, announce the location after they've purchased, you have to have a good refund policy, all of those things. And we do cover this in the course in more detail, but there's absolutely options. And, if you don't have that nest egg, like, that doesn't have to stop you from hosting your first event. It's totally possible.
Yeah, those are excellent and creative. And none of them were like, put all of your money into a deposit and then panic sell tickets
No.
to
No.
do the rest. Because I've seen that happen multiple times now with the retreat, and we can tell, because it's like, hey,
Yeah.
deadline's up. It's time to pay your next piece, and you can just feel like the tension. So that's excellent. It's something that I've wanted to like explore while I'm speaking with these people that are trying to rent our space. And then, so next question, this might be very broad. You might not be able to answer this directly. Simple ways because a lot of the times people don't sell out their retreats. You can just see it. 12 seats, they sold 4, probably 2 of them were 50% off at the last second, and all these types of things. They maybe break even. Like, what are different strategies, techniques to not, just need to like sell half the tickets for 80% off so that your retreat looks like it's sold out, so you can get all the footage that you can maybe sell the next one? Like, what are some common things that you see happen, like what I just said, because I know that's super common, and ways to go about it? Like, I know I'm probably like, don't have a retreat in 3 months if it's your first one. Maybe make it a year out in advance, and just some general things that you see happen that probably are no-nos, and techniques for people to have a sold out, highly profitable retreat.
Such a good question. Yeah, there's so many things you can do to not run into that. Um, okay, a couple things. Yeah, don't try to sell a retreat that's in 2 months, especially internationally. Just don't do it. You're setting yourself up for failure. Um, be super realistic about what is possible for you and what is possible given your audience. So if you have a small community, don't expect that 80% of them are going to purchase whatever event that it doesn't mean it's not a good event. You would be a serious outlier if 80% of your audience bought your offer online. Like that's an outlier. And so it's the same with events. One of the tactics that I find the most useful is, reverse engineering your budget. You can't just start to willy-nilly plan your event, make all these deposits, book all these vendors, book the retreat center, whatever, and then realize, oh shit, I have to sell each bed for $6,000 to make this work. I get it that people want to host these incredible international retreats on their first go. And I love that for you. But what I love more for you is to see you succeed. And so to sort of temper those expectations of what is possible for you, plan backwards of, this is what I think it's going to cost. And I have, templates for this. This is what I think it's going to cost. And this is what I need to make. And so this is what I need to sell. And then there are ways to temper those costs as well with, sponsorships, upsells, in-kind donations, which are something that, you can knock off costs that you would pay for by getting sponsors to give you that thing so you don't have to pay for it. There's tons of ways to make sure that you're not going to end up 2 weeks out in the hole. And it just takes pre-planning, and not just like hoping on a prayer and a dream. Like we're not, it's business, and a prayer is not going to do it really for these situations. Like you really have to be, prepared for potential outcomes and give yourself those buffers of like, if I don't, you can't really go into it being like, I have to sell out. You guys said this I was listening to y'all's podcast together yesterday of like, if you, it's like dating of like, if you go into it being like, I need you, and then you're just like super desperate and like really crazy, like that doesn't turn out well. And so, being able to build that buffer into your budget and into your timeline is super important so that you're not absolutely losing it a couple weeks out.
And so if people, let's say they're hosting their first international retreat, you're recommending it's not their first retreat, regardless. Do you?
I got you if it is, but
would you recommend like a year's of ahead of time? And like I want to just touch quickly before we come back to that question. But so what you're saying is like get all your ducks in order in terms of the numbers. And this is like personal things too. Like what does your flight cost? What does all your expenses, the actual business expense, get all of that, and then reverse engineer it, and then find out the tickets and But how many months would you say would be like a minimum? And then is there a too far in the future? Is there kind of like a sweet spot? And then I have one other follow-up question.
Yeah, starting the planning process a year in advance is a great idea for, at the very least, the reason that you want to have options for the space that you desire. And retreat centers book out really far. It doesn't mean you have to announce to your audience a year out that this is happening. But if you are, dead set on a date, you're probably going to want to get that date. So that feels really important. And the more time you give yourself, there are two kinds of people. I work really well under pressure. Like I kind of need a deadline in order to get my stuff together. Some people really prefer that like really expansive time frame to be able to, dilly dally and be creative and like all of the things. So it's really up to you, but I would say more than a year. Lots of places don't, wedding venues book out that long, but lots of event venues may not book out more than a year in advance. So it does depend. For international, people obviously need to, think about their travel. They need to take off work. They might need to get childcare, like all of those things. If you think about it, if you put yourself in the position of your attendee, do that. Like if you think you need 9 months to, plan for taking your 2-week vacation or whatever it is, give them that amount of time. But like, let's be honest with ourselves, announcing a retreat 3 months in advance where people have to get flights and accommodations and take time off work, like it's not going to happen. Or it's not going to happen the way you want it to. So let's just
selling tickets at 80% off just to fill it.
Yeah, like let's just be practical about that.
Do you have a like contingency percentage that you recommend? Is it like, hey, like you budget and the flights and your food and everything comes out and it's, $10,000? Do you have like okay, you should have $12,000? Is there like a 20%, or do you have some baseline advice for people to have contingencies? Because again, I've seen this over and over again where it's like we spent more than we planned over and over and over again with these, bless their hearts, lofty spiritual healer coach people that don't do numbers often.
The spreadsheet haters.
The spreadsheet haters that just don't do that.
The people who aren't freaks in the sheets,
Yeah. Hey, freaks in the sheets. Took me a second. Do you have like a base, like whatever you budget, put 20% on top, or any sort of advice? If it's a $5,000, have 6. If it's a 10, any sort of baseline advice for that?
Yeah, it definitely depends on a couple of things, but the overall answer is like 10 to 20%.
Yeah.
If you're local, it's lower. If you're international, it's higher.
Yeah.
If it's an event you've done before, it's lower. Mm-hmm. If it's a brand new concept, it's higher. Mm-hmm. It's interesting because actually a lot of, depending on the size of your event, it actually sort of exponentially goes down the sort of contingency. Yeah, the contingency.
Yeah.
But 10 to 20% is probably safe. And you want to be at every step, like your P&L, your profits and losses sheet, like that is your Bible. That is you live and die off the profits and losses sheet, because we have to remember, like, we are building community, but we are not doing it. Maybe you are, and great if you are, I'm all about it, but we're not doing it for free most of the time. And so, living and dying off of that sheet and making sure that you are, estimating and negotiating. Lots of people think that, you get a quote from a vendor, that's it. It ain't. Negotiate the hell out of that rate. Go for it. There's a lot of ways to do that I teach. And you just have to be realistic. Like, you don't want to end up at the end of it finally looking at your P&L that you haven't looked at since you first started and being like, damn, that cost me $5,000.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that's pretty good from my side. I have one other one. This might be specific because have retreats in Peru. This is kind of touching on like, out of all the retreats I've been to, hands down, there has never been enough just chill time. Mm-hmm. Back to back to back to back to back. I don't even get to know half the people because I don't get a second to talk with them. And so I love how you touched on that. And then at the same time, there's got to be a balance of providing all these types of values. And so, like in Peru, like sometimes people do ayahuasca, right? Sometimes there's Wachuma hikes, right? And the participants leave just cooked. Like they are not rested at all. It wasn't a retreat. This was like a pressure cooker container for them. And so in these types of retreats where let's say there's plant medicines or maybe like really long day workshops all focused in mastermind and all these things, do you have again some sort of kind of like basic like, okay, do ayahuasca and then let them chill for a full day? And like do you have any sort of, if there's a big mastermind, have a day in between or a block or any sort of advice or anything that comes up for you?
What's the balance there?
Yeah, what's like the balance? If it's a 5-day retreat and you do medicine twice, is that all that happens? It's like medicine, rest, goodbye, or like,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I have seen that problem so many times. I did retreats with the community for like 5 or 6 years, and we continuously got that feedback every time.
Yeah.
And we didn't take it. That is something that, okay, there's a couple things. One is when you're planning and you're not actually feeling the feelings that you will feel during the event. It's like when you plan a trip and you're like, I want to do this and I want to do that and I want to do that and then I want to do that. And then at noon, when you've walked around Rome for 7 hours already, you're like, I don't want to go to the museum. I want to take a nap. And so we have these like ideas of what we're capable of in the planning process, that then we get on site and we're like, that was a bad idea. And that is hard to plan for. But that's why we have, me and a community of people who, will talk through these kinds of things together and sort of make those plans. But it's always more downtime than you want to give. I think that's a solid answer. It's always more than you want to give. And you can always, if you're prepared enough, you can always pivot. You can always pivot. You can always, you can have some stuff in your pocket that's like, if people seem like they're bored or they're not connecting during this downtime, what can I offer them? And also, in that vein, like, downtime doesn't have to be nothing. It shouldn't be nothing. It should be curated downtime. You don't want people to feel confused about what they're supposed to be doing. You don't want people to feel like they're, am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to go back to my room? Am I like, that is confusing for people. And so relaxing, curated activities are a really good way to build in that downtime. Getting people to have little small group connection time where they just, you give them some question cards and they're able to chat with each other. Like that's a nervous system regulation, down regulation. That's really important. That doesn't just set people free into like no man's land of event time. So, but it's always more than you think.
Okay, and there's like some quote that says something along the lines of smart people learn from their own mistakes and wise people learn from the mistakes of others. And so
I got a lot of mistakes.
Why did it take you 5 to 6 years personally to take the same feedback to like finally be like, all right, this has been, 1,800 days of the same feedback. Maybe it's time that I take it. Why did it take you 5 to 6 years to do that? And for the people that are listening and hosting the retreats, all the retreats I've been to, not enough downtime, 6 years of feedback. Why did it take you that long? And what will the people that are going from coach to host be experiencing that you experienced? And really, get down to that level of this. It feels like a lack mindset type of thing. Maybe, yeah, shine some light on this for us.
Yeah. I think in that situation, it came down to the people closest to the community hearing the feedback and having that feedback not be understood or agreed with by leadership. And I think the beauty of being, the planner, the executor, and the host is that you have the opportunity to be really close to your community. You have the opportunity to be in the mix with people and really understanding that feedback. And, I think our issue at the time was that the people closest were, they were hearing that and they were sharing that, and it didn't feel as true to the people who were leading. And that's just something, that's something that was just really difficult to navigate. And I don't think, I don't place blame on anyone for that situation. And I think, we tried in all of the ways that we did to sort of, build in that time. And it just took a while. And I think that's something that, you're not gonna get it right every time, and that's okay. And just being humble enough to say, I didn't get that right, and I'm going to try something different. That might not work either. That also brings me to one more point of well, now I forget what it was. Yeah, I don't know.
Is there
We'll
is
see if it
there
comes back.
is the like, because I can, as I'm thinking about this, if someone was hosting a retreat, there'd probably be a greater fear of people being like, I felt like I got ripped off. I gave you 3 grand and I only got this. And so instead they'd rather go like, I paid 3 grand and then it was all this stuff. So that's probably like the main piece. And obviously you can't like predict, you don't know all these types of things. And would it be better to like slightly or majorly over deliver and have everyone be totally rocked when they go home? Or would it be better to slightly under like serve different various forms of stuff and have people go back and be like, yeah, like I'm really well rested, but maybe I could have had like a couple extra yoga classes or something like that? Like, which side is better to slightly lean on, do you think?
Yeah, I just want you to get it perfect the first time. No other options. No, I think this is what I was going to say before.
Yeah.
You're not going to make everyone happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is not, maybe it'll happen, and like, tell me how you did it if it does. But there's always going to be, no matter what you do, I've experienced this so many times where we get the feedback that there's not enough downtime, and then we do more downtime. There was too much downtime, or like there wasn't enough food, and then the next time there was so much food that people were like, you guys are so wasteful. So it's really difficult, and you're not going to make everyone happy, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Building that confidence in yourself of, I provided a level of value that feels, and use the feedback that you get. You want to be listening to that. But you can't, as a leader, you can't let every single voice completely dictate your next steps. You can let it influence, you can take it into consideration, and you should, but you cannot like lose yourself in the process of hearing feedback. I think, over delivering can come in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be over delivering to a point of exhausting people on site. There are lots of other ways to deliver value to people that don't do that. There's post event content and integration, offering people post event calls, offering people optional activities that they can take part in. Optional is really great because you kind of get to, tell people they're wrong if they didn't have enough to do, because you're like, but did you do everything?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of a fun way to do it. Obviously don't say that to your guests, but yeah, there's all kinds of ways that you can deliver value that don't totally burn people out.
Excellent. Yeah, I love
And put
the
yourself in
option.
their shoes.
I think the optional is like a power play for people hosting
Yeah.
retreats.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
did you go to the 5 yoga classes we planned? Did you?
Yeah. Yeah. Final question.
Did you do the 20-mile hike? Because I didn't see you there.
Final question is techniques and methods for the people hosting retreats to be not absolutely burnt out and rocked, by the second to last day or the last day or when they go home. Like how to hold the space for whatever the 10, 20, 30 people properly and not completely deplete and drain your cup. Because I see this again and again and again as well.
Yeah. I say this as someone who for 3 years got so sick after every event.
Mm-hmm.
So sick. I got COVID, I got the flu, I got a sinus infection. Like every time I would just be like totally on my ass, like emotionally depleted, mentally depleted, physically depleted. And eventually I was like, if I want to keep doing this, I have to figure out why this is happening. Surprise, surprise, planning really well. The mental load is actually so connected to your physical wellness on site. The worry and the like living off of coffee because you had to stay up because you had to like get the check-in form ready, like that really starts to wear on you. And I think that's, something to plan for, something to figure out so that you can step in on event day and not be doing everything that you were supposed to do before event day. And then, there's absolutely some, nervous system regulation tactics that, for people who aren't woo-woo or whatever, it's not woo-woo, it's science, to be able to downregulate your nervous system in order to show up in a way that's like really grounded and really calm and doesn't burn you out. And, planning for not having to, set your alarm and jump right out of bed and get to the space, like giving yourself 20 minutes, like take a deep breath, like those are all plan forable issues that you can manage. There's a lot of tactics for that. A lot of them are just self-care, really.
Excellent. Well, we'll have a lot to chat about after this because I've got a lot of burnt out facilitators that want to come host again.
Come to me.
So I got just the person.
Yeah. So with that in mind, people are ready to start facilitating, or they're facilitators that need a better way to do the thing that they're doing because they're getting absolutely cooked by doing their events. How do they work with you? What is Coach to Host?
So Coach to Host is a 28-day course delivered to you via email because we don't need more logins. So the curriculum is delivered via email. You get to have that literally forever, save it. It's your event planning Bible. And then there's 4 live masterclasses there where I will, teach the why behind the how. We'll do hot seat coaching and Q&A and all that kind of stuff. And then there will also be a Slack community where you get to communicate with other hosts, other builders, other people who are on the same path as you. And someday, not today, we will be integrating an in-person element to that, which I'm really excited about. I have some really fun ideas for that, but they can find the wait list, which is now open.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah. But yeah, wait list is open, and the first round will be launching soon. So I'm really excited.
I'm going to be hopping in there as well because I have never run my own events. And I'm really
Not
excited to get, not yet. No, exactly. And I'm really excited to jump in with you in that process and to do it the right way. And so for everyone who's listening, who is a coach, who is a person who wants to have more in-person community, who wants to be able to actually hug the people that they're helping, go check out Maddie. Like, we're going to put her Instagram in there. We're going to put the link to the wait list, hop in with her. Maybe you're listening to this a year from now and she has even cooler things and you can actually go to some of the events. Right. So now instead of coaches who coach coaches on how to coach coaches, you can go to an event on how to plan events. We're evolving.
We're just this is just coach inception.
Maddie, if there was one distilled piece of wisdom based on all of your experience as an event host, as someone who has brought community together, what is one piece of advice or wisdom that you want to leave the audience with, the one nugget that they can anchor to, that you want to leave them with from this conversation?
I think anyone who has, chosen the path of coach has chosen it because they do have a desire to serve. And the amazing feeling of being able to meet those people in real life and to like really feel the shift that you're being able to provide people, that feeling that you get in person, like if you haven't felt it yet, I can't explain it. It's so much fun. Like being able to hug your people at the end of an event where they're all just like the most amped and they're like, I can't wait to give you a testimony. Like it's the best. It's really the best. I can't even explain it to you. And I hope that I see so many events from coaches who, have every right and really deserve to have that feeling. I hope I see so many of those events on the proverbial master calendar in the next year.
Well, thanks so much for joining us for this episode. I hope to have you on again to talk more about your experience and actually like guiding people through this, and hope to see you at an event and actually hug you in person and get so stoked and like be in tears and be like, I can't wait to give you a testimonial. So, guys, for those who are listening to the Conscious Grounding podcast on YouTube, please leave us a comment, a like, and a quick subscribe. It really helps the algorithm. We're pushing this out. This is a newer podcast, and we want to get some traction because these are cool conversations, I think. Not that I'm biased or anything. Okay. And if you're listening on Spotify, you can leave comments on Spotify too. That's a new thing. That's a fun thing. We maybe even put a funny little poll in there that you can check out. So check out the show notes if you want to get a hold of Maddie. Go check out her content and go check out her course. I will be there as well for the first round, so you can jam with me and we'll hang out in the Slack channel together, and that'll be a lot of fun. We'll plan some cool events together and build an even bigger community. Maddie, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. It was an absolute blast chatting with you today.
Thank you guys so much. This was so much fun. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode of the Conscious Grounding podcast.